Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsey, and as always, I have the terrific pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm great, Brian. It's great to be here with you, and I'm still recovering a little bit from that amazing Preakness stretch drive.
Crab cake hangover, Mr. Schiffman. We are 2/3 of the way through the 2017 Triple Crown, and we have two different winners. We're almost sure to have a third different winner come the Belmont Stakes, just like last year. No one's been able to string together two Triple Crown wins since American Pharoah won the Triple Crown. But Matt, let's dive right into the middle jewel, the Preakness Stakes. We had an upset. It was billed as Classic Empire, Always Dreaming, and that's what we got for the first, seven and a half furlongs. But in the end, it was an upset. Cloud Computing.
Yes, Brian, it certainly was. And we've used the phrase before in the past. Classic Empire won the battle with Always Dreaming, and that was a big goal that Mark Casse and Julien Leparoux had set for themselves going into the race. They were going to take it to Always Dreaming, and they did that. They beat him. And coming down the stretch, wow, it looked like Classic Empire was going to run away with it. Leparoux kept after Classic Empire because he knew somebody was going to be coming, and that was Cloud Computing.
Leparoux almost looked a bit surprised when Cloud Computing got onto him at that point, I guess near the 16th pole. Yeah, it sure looked like Classic Empire was a winner for at least the first half of the stretch, Matt. And you're right. This was a battle. This was a battle between the horse Classic Empire had to beat, the favorite, the Kentucky Derby winner, Always Dreaming, and the 2-year-old champion, Classic Empire. And what it became really was a 2-horse race. Of course, as we know, a lot of these 2-horse races don't end up with either of the two as the winner. Cloud Computing deserves a ton of credit. This was his 4th lifetime race. Chad Brown, Klarovich, Bill Lawrence's horse, Javi Castellano, really nice looking horse. I always thought he had a lot of potential, but there's no nice way for me to say this. People are going to get mad at me, Matt. I don't think he was the best horse in the race. I thought Classic Empire was the best horse in the race. We saw the Kentucky Oaks, for example, what happens when one horse goes after another horse early in the race, even if they're two of the best or the two best horses in the race. And I think that's what happened a little bit in the final 1/8 of a mile to Classic Empire. He ran a winning race. He thought he had to beat Always Dreaming, but of course, Cloud Computing came and got him. Matt, interestingly, Leparoux and Casse, this was the plan right away to go after the Derby winner. They did it. I wonder if they're having any second thoughts about how they pushed Classic Empire pretty much the whole race. I mean, even in the backstretch, they weren't letting up on Always Dreaming one iota.
Well, Brian, it's easy to have, second doubts when you see the outcome. There's no way you could know that Always Dreaming was not going to have his A game in the race. If you knew that, you could have sat off him and gone right by. But there was no way to know that. And at the same time, Chad Brown and Javi had a game plan too, and their game plan was knowing that Classic Empire was going to battle with Always Dreaming. Their game plan was to sit stalking just 2-3 lengths behind, and that's exactly what they did. They sat a perfect trip and made their move, and were just able to get up. I don't know if Leparoux was surprised, but clearly when Classic Empire recognized Cloud Computing coming, Classic Empire dug in a little bit at the end, narrowed the margin a little bit, and had even more fight to the wire. And that's another reason to really respect what the Casse runner did in the Preakness.
Absolutely, Matt. He did dig in. Of course, Cloud Computing had the momentum, and he was the less tired horse of the two, so he was able to edge on by. But Classic Empire ran a very game race in defeat. Now, Cloud Computing, this is a Hillendale special here. They bred the mare. They have the young sire, first crop sire McLean's Music, who of course ran that huge maiden race, and then we never saw him again. So big win for Hillendale. Cloud Computing, big win for Chad Brown. You knew he'd get a Triple Crown sooner or later. The young 2016 Eclipse Award winning trainer has his first classic race with Cloud Computing, a horse a lot of people thought might not be the horse that Brown gets it done with. Javi Castellano, I'm very happy for him. One of the nicer guys out there, one of the best jockeys, certainly in the nation. And he rode a masterful race. Matt, before the race, Brown was interviewed on what he wanted to see unfold during the race. And basically, he told you exactly what was going to happen. It couldn't have unfolded better for Castellano. A lot of credit for Castellano and Cloud Computing. Now, getting back to the top two, I think that's as much of the story as anything, Matt. Before the race, right or wrong, and this is still yet to be determined. I'm not trying to sing my praises here, but right or wrong, before the race, I thought Classic Empire was the best horse in the race. You thought Always Dreaming was the best horse in the race. Have you changed your mind after seeing what happened in the first mile of the Preakness?
Well, you know, it's hard to know. Always Dreaming clearly was a little tired from the Kentucky Derby. We're going to have to see down the road what happens. Classic Empire certainly has been more consistent in the two Triple Crown races so far. So it's hard to say, Brian.
Fair enough, Matt. Classic Empire is going to go on to the Belmont. It looks like we don't think there's much chance Always Dreaming goes to the Belmont, Matt. That gets back a little bit. What I want to talk about, too, is Todd Pletcher does not like to run horses. Out of the 48 horses on such short rest, that is, out of the 48 horses that Pletcher has started in the Kentucky Derby, he's only brought back 4 now. Always Dreaming was the 4th of 48 for Pletcher to bring back on 2 weeks rest into the Preakness. And I wonder if that has something to do, I'm sure people are thinking it out there, does that have something to do with Always Dreaming's poor performance?
You know, Brian, it sure appears that way, but before the race, Always Dreaming was full of himself and seemed to be sitting on a big one, but his tank was a little bit empty.
Yeah, Always Dreaming, certainly, Matt, did not have his day in the Preakness, but as we saw in the Florida Derby and the Kentucky Derby, a very talented horse. It'll be interesting to see how he bounces back and when he bounces back for Todd Pletcher and his large group of owners. Matt, 5 other horses were lapped onto each other. Of course, Always Dreaming faded quite a bit. He was 8th by just about 14 lengths at the finish, but for him, by the time they turned home, he was done. Senior Investment came running late. He was motoring down the lane a little bit to win a 5-horse scrum for 3rd, which also included Looking at Lee in 4th, Guinevere 5th. Guinevere came back a little worse for wear. He'll get a little break. Multiplier was 6th, also running late. Conquest Mo Money, I think, ran a sneaky good race. He was actually 7th, but he was wide, and he never got really close to the lead, but he kept running all the way to be 7th, and in a 5-way photo with a little over a length between 3rd and 7th. Anything else in that field impress you? I heard some people say Senior Investment would have won if he'd gotten going earlier. I don't believe that one little bit, but he did prove 3rd best with that late run.
No, I can't buy into that at all. I think a 3rd place performance was probably way beyond expectations for the ownership there, and they should be extremely happy to say that they have a Preakness placed runner.
Now, Matt, I think one other thing that I saw a lot of, and Jerry Bailey even alluded to it on the Preakness show, was maybe Leparoux did too much early, maybe Leparoux did too much on the turn, maybe Leparoux did too much when they were first straightening out, and that got Classic Empire beat. I don't think so. I think he did what he thought he needed to do and go get Always Dreaming and beat him, and then opened up in the lane. I have no problems with Leparoux's ride, frankly. No,
and my first reaction was, because I'll be honest, Brian, I needed Classic Empire to hit the pick 5 on Preakness Day. So I was a little disappointed, and my first reaction was, how the heck did Classic Empire get caught? And then I went back and watched the replay, and as I mentioned earlier, after Classic Empire took the lead, it wasn't like Leparoux started coasting with the horse. He kept the horse busy. He was switching sticks with the horse, and both of them have said that Classic Empire has a tendency to relax when he gets into a lead like that, and they knew it, and they were trying to avoid that. I don't think he can be criticized in any way. That was their game plan, and he rode to it.
Agreed, Matt. All right, so the Preakness is done. We've seen Always Dreaming win the Kentucky Derby. We've seen Cloud Computing now win the Preakness. Classic Empire, probably the most consistent horse in the first two legs, or I'm going to say he is the most consistent considering his very bad trip in the Kentucky Derby where he was fourth. Now we move on to the Belmont. What do we expect to see in the Belmont, Matt? It looks like Always Dreaming is no, and Cloud Computing, neither of us seem still to be determined, but neither of us are confident that Cloud Computing will be in the Belmont either. So Matt, we got probably a clear favorite in Classic Empire running in his third leg of the Triple Crown, and we have Looking at Lee coming back as another horse who will run in all three legs. Both of them having a second and a fourth in the first two legs. Who else are we going to see in the Belmont?
Yeah, Brian, it looks like a possible field of 13, which would make the Belmont exciting, even though the Kentucky Derby and Preakness winners aren't in there. In addition, it looks like 5 horses are coming back from the Kentucky Derby with a little extra time and a little extra rest in Taprit, Patch possibly, Gormley, IRAP, and J. Boy's Echo. In addition to them, we got 2 others coming back from the Preakness with Conquest Mo Money, Multiplier, and Senior Investment, and then 3 new shooters for the Belmont Stakes coming from Japan, Epicarius, who will be starting. His last race was in the UAE Derby. He's running in the Belmont with a possible $1 million bonus should he win the race. Also,
yeah, I think Epicarius, the Japanese horse, has a real chance, Matt. I've been following him even before he got to Dubai, and that Japanese horse who has some speed seems like a genuine racehorse. You were going to mention a few others?
Yep, and there's just a couple others. That's Twisted Tom coming from Chad Brown Barn. If he goes, he's going to need to be supplemented into the race. And Meantime, who finished second in the Peter Pan. And Brian, I'm sure you and I are going to talk a lot more about the field in the 2 weeks coming up before the Belmont.
Yeah, Matt, we still have 2.5 weeks to see how that Belmont field fleshes out. But right now, it's interesting. It's interesting that there are so many possibilities. It's interesting that Classic Empire, after 2 tough beats in the Derby and the Preakness, is willing to be in the Belmont. The connections obviously have a lot of belief in the horse, but also they like the way he's popping back after these races, which is a nice sign. Clearly the one to beat, but I don't think he by any means is a sure thing in that field, especially after 2 tough races. So the Belmont Stakes, which we'll talk about more in depth, especially in the next 2 weeks, will be the final leg of the Triple Crown. I think it's June the 10th, Matt, like I said, about 2.5 weeks from now. Matt, people have been following this Triple Crown trail for months. I think we should talk a little bit about the 3-year-olds, the best 3-year-olds in the country. It's interesting to me. In fact, it's very interesting to me. This is how I voted, by the way. But it's interesting to me that the horse that was beaten in both the Derby and the Preakness is number 1 in the poll that just came out. Ahead, Classic Empire is ahead of Always Dreaming, the Kentucky Derby winner, and Cloud Computing, the Preakness winner. Right now, the state of the 3-year-old males, the Glamour division of American racing, certainly looks to be wide open. And like last year, I think we're going to have the second half of the year really decide who the 3-year-old champion is.
Yeah, Brian, and without question, if you look at the past performances, the 3 obvious top choices are Always Dreaming and Cloud Computing and Classic Empire. But like you said, I don't know, Brian. It's going to be an interesting second half of the year. The Travers, the Haskell, all those races are going to be extra important. Is this another year when someone's going to come from behind, so to speak, like Arrogate did last year? Or is the best 3-year-old a horse who's on the sideline right now, Brian? Is it Mastery? Is it Unique Bella? I mean, if you want to throw the filly in there, 2 horses that have a tremendous amount of talent. I hope they get back sooner this year than later.
Yeah, Matt, I think Unique Bella is a whole different discussion. She can't be 3-year-old male champion, as we know. But yeah, I've thought all along that she's certainly a possibility to be the best 3-year-old overall in the country. Hopefully we'll see her this year. I think there's still a good chance that she'll come back. Mastery, I'm a little bit less confident that we'll see him before Breeders' Cup. I think that would be a little bit of surprise to me. It seems like people think that, especially after what happened last year, that we will have a champion that did not come from this group in the Triple Crown. And that is a little bit rare still. It's happened, Tiz Now did it. Even Will Take Charge, who ran in the Triple Crown races, but then had a very good second half of the year, kind of took over despite losing all 3 legs of the Triple Crown. Last year, Matt, Arrogate, at this date, what's the date today, Matt? May 23. Arrogate was still a maiden. He had only 1 race. It was a promising finish in that 1 race, but he had not won a race yet 1 year ago. So it's hard to fathom how fast and how far Arrogate got in such a short amount of time. We can't expect another Arrogate to come along. Or maybe we will see a horse who's at least similar to Arrogate and proves to be the best of this crop. Some of the candidates I think that have really impressed me would include Timeline, a son of Hard Spun, also for Chad Brown, who's 3 for 3 and has kind of lapped up the slop recently in New York racing, but the Peter Pan winner. I think he might be even better than people realize. And then there's Army Mule, Matt, who's has only had 1 sprint so far for Todd Pletcher, but he is a very impressive young horse.
Yeah, he certainly is. And just getting back to Arrogate a little bit, even though he was still a maiden at this point, Mr. Baffert was letting it known that he had a very talented horse in the barn at this point. So I agree. I don't think we're going to see another Arrogate coming along, but who knows?
Absolutely. It should be interesting. And by the way, I did make a big point of Classic Empire being number 1 on the NTRA poll right now, which is a lot of the same people that are voting for the Eclipse Awards at the end of the year. However, my opinion is if the season ended today, of course, thankfully, we still have 7 more months or so. But if the season ended today, it wouldn't be Classic Empire that was named 3-year-old champion. Matt, it would be who?
It would be Always Dreaming.
I think Always Dreaming would get it. I think people are looking at Classic Empire beating Always Dreaming off in the Preakness, and that's the initial reaction, like it is mine, that Classic Empire is a better horse and he deserves to be number 1. But looking at the 2016-17 season for the first 5 months, I think if we just did that, Always Dreaming would be the champion. But he's got a lot to prove when he does come back, and hopefully it is not too long before we see him. Cloud Computing, 2 for 4. He didn't start. His first race didn't come until February. I believe it was February 11, Matt. So kind of like Bernardini or Arrogate to a point. He's come a long way in a short amount of time, but he still has a lot to prove after his Preakness win as well.
Yeah, like you said, Always Dreaming has 2 grade 1s at this point, and that's more than anybody else.
At least this year, yeah. Yes, Classic Empire has 3 in total. But this year, Always Dreaming with Florida Derby, Kentucky Derby, that's the most. All right, Matt, another wonderful weekend of racing we saw at Pimlico. There were so many good horses running on both Friday and Saturday. Some of the highlights, of course, were World Approval winning on the turf, Actress breaking her maiden in the Black Eyed Susan. She had run 2 nice maiden races where she didn't get up, but then she surprised and won the Black Eyed Susan. World Approval, once again, as he did this time last year, looks like one of the better turf horses in America. Yoshida, Matt. Yoshida is a 3-year-old, lightly raced out of the Belmont barn that I think a lot of people are going to be talking about.
I think that's a very, very talented turf horse, and Bill Mott's as good with turf runners as anybody out there. Definitely a horse to keep an eye on.
Yeah, we saw Terra Promessa tear up the Pimlico track. She had no problem at all in the DuPont Distaff, reproving after running a very good race to stellar win last time that she is one of the best 5 or 6 older mares in a strong division. Vertical Oak impressed in the Miss Preakness. No More Dough for Graham Motion looks like another one of those 3-year-olds who could be really, really good. Now he's doing his own Triple Crown, having won Derby Day and Preakness Day. Recruiting Ready is a serious sprinter, the 3-year-old. And speaking of serious sprinters, Matt, we need to talk a little bit about Whitmore and AP Indian, because they put on a very good show in the Maryland Sprint.
They sure did, and we were looking forward to this matchup. We were looking forward to see how Whitmore would do against a top-class sprinter like AP Indian. I'll admit, Brian, I was a little surprised to see AP Indian go to the lead. Not that he hadn't run closer to the pace in the past, he had, but I was a little bit surprised to see that. Maybe they wanted to get a lead and see if Whitmore could come get them. AP Indian ran a fantastic race, but wow, the big horse Whitmore, he just came a-running, and it was interesting. He broke alertly, and his jockey, Rafael Santana, gave him a little bit of rest, pulled him back a little bit after the break, let him relax a little bit, and then asked for the run, and coming by and beating AP Indian, that shows you're a serious horse. And once again, the sprint division is loaded when you talk about Whitmore and AP Indian and Mind Your Biscuits. And you mentioned recruiting ready already, Brian. Terrific.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned Drifang, who's back galloping now. Awesome Slew. There's a lot of good sprinters. This is an exciting division this year after maybe being a little bit lackluster the last few years. The list goes on as far as good sprinters. AP Indian, I'm with you. He ran a very good race. I didn't think he'd be on the lead either, but he was game all the way around, fighting different horses throughout the race. But finally, like you said, what's so exciting for about Whitmore is he has tactical speed to be in very good positions early, and then he just has a closing kick in these sprints that's really, really impressive. Amazing. He's 7 for 7 now, Matt, at sprint distances, 6.5 furlongs or less. The son of Pleasantly Perfect, trained by Ron Moquette, is awfully good. This, as many sprints as he's won, this was the best horse that he's beaten. It was nice to see him get a real test. He gave weight, probably didn't corner quite as well, or he got out a little wider than he needed to at one point in the stretch. But you could just see that he was a unstoppable force coming down the lane late in that one. So Whitmore, I know you love Mind Your Biscuits, and for good reason. Drifang, if he comes back as good as he was last year, wow. Just those 3 alone. Whitmore, Sharp Azteca, Matt, what a sprint division. Anyway, another big division, of course, is the handicap division, dominated by Arrogate right now. What he's done in the last 8 months is just incredible. Gunrunner's really good. We like Connect a lot from the Chad Brown barn, but credit needs to be given to Shaman Ghost, who keeps running really good races.
He sure does, and I think both of us, Brian, were a little dubious about whether Shaman Ghost would be cranked up and be at 100%. Well, I don't know whether he was or he wasn't. The big guy put in another terrific, determined run, and seems to be a horse that's getting better and better and handling all kinds of different situations. Aside from Arrogate, we got some great ones there with Gunrunner and Connect in there also. And hats off to Dolphus, who is part of that Jimmy Jerkins barn with Shaman Ghost, ran a heck of a race to get second.
Yeah, Jimmy Jerkins dominated the Pimlico Special. Now, Shaman Ghost, of course, when he won the Queen's Plate a few years ago, was trained by Brian Lynch, but he's been trained now for a couple seasons by Jimmy Jerkins. And obviously, he's better than ever. He's always been a nice horse. but better than ever and deserving to be near the top of the handicap division after Arrogate. But Dolphus, of course, is it's the little half brother of one of my all-time favorites, Rachel Alexandra, looking better and better, and especially since he came to the Jimmy Jerkins barn earlier this year, previously trained by Joe Sharp. Dolphus has now rattled off 3 successive better races than the last. He's showing good early speed, and Dolphus ran a huge race to give everything Shaman Ghost had to get by him. So Dolphus, I don't know how many lengths, it was close to 8 lengths clear of the rest of the field, some decent horses behind them. But Shaman Ghost moves on as a top handicap horse, and Dolphus may be one to watch for sure moving on. Matt, we're going to jump back onto the Triple Crown trail in a big way the next 2 weeks. Belmont Stakes, no Triple Crown, who cares? Belmont Stakes and Belmont Stakes weekend are just huge races and huge race weekends at Belmont Park coming up. So many big races besides the Belmont Stakes over those 2 days, especially Belmont Stakes Day. So we're going to be excited about the Belmont Stakes, the Met Mile, and very, very many other races over the next 2 weeks to talk about right here on HorseCenter. Matt, we should thank our sponsor, the best contest site out there, Derby Wars. As always, folks, we encourage you to check out Horse Racing Nation Daily for all the latest news and thoughts from our staff, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel where we have HorseCenter and a lot more great videos going up daily. Parting shots from you, sir.
Again, Brian, the hits keep coming, and we got some great racing coming up, leading up to the Belmont Stakes and the big day in New York, and then it's on to Saratoga and Del Mar. So that's what's great about racing, Brian. There's always good stuff coming. And as always, thank you, Brett Workman, for your great work on HorseCenter.
Much like the racing, Brett Workman never slows down, Matt. That's our show, folks. Thanks for watching HorseCenter. As always, we'll see you next week.